Whittling 102. Is it still whittling anymore? Today I want to go over using a gouge and a V tool. I've had a video recently where we talked about buying a gouge and a V tool as the next step past the knife. So today we're going to talk about how to make use of them properly and how to do so safely. I think that whittling is defined as something I hold in my hand and then carve with my other hand. It becomes wood carving specifically, I think, when we're doing something that's mounted, something that's fixed, and it's a shady definition for all of this, because any of it can be whatever we make of it, right? Definitions are inherently subjective. That's how they work, and they evolve and they change over time. So for the purpose of our video today, I include this as whittling to me, because if I'm holding it in my hand and working on it with a hand tool, I consider it the same thing. But I'm going to show you how to use those tools safely today and show you some options you have for using those tools that you might not have thought about for someone who's new, definitely hadn't thought about, and how to use them more efficiently as well. All right, let's talk about safe use real quick with a gouge and a V tool. With both of these, safe use is really the same thing for using palm tools. When we're using a knife, we know to keep our fingers out of the way. But with a palm tool or a V tool, we're often carving towards our hands in a lot of ways. The issue I want to talk about is how we're pushing this gouge, because you're not pushing it with your arm. This motion, or with your arm this way, this is the part that gets people in trouble, and that's how people stab themselves with a gouge or a V tool. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be pivoting my hand in a lot of ways to get stuff done. I'm going to be moving the hand via the wrist and not with the arm. The forearm shouldn't be moving when I use this. So like in this manner here, I'm taking out pieces of wood, cutting cross grain here. I am just turning it in and out. I am not pushing or shoving with my whole arm to get that gouge through there. If it requires that amount of force, you are either exerting the force wrong, or your tool isn't as sharp as it should be. So again, in and out, right, like so, and just the wrist action. And also you can use the offhand to bring the wood in and do both in one maneuver if that's easier for you. And I often find myself doing this maneuver when I'm carving wood out, and it puts a little bit of the pressure or a little bit of the work into both hands rather than just one hand. So that's a good thing to keep in mind and to think about. When I'm carving straight up and down, let's say I get to a part that, oh, right there, it's getting harder to push through, right? Don't keep putting pressure in the same way. Back off a little bit, change tact, and see what becomes easier. When we get stuck in wood, when we get stuck and we can't push anymore, that's when people end up injured. This is when injuries occur, is when they go, oh, to get through there, I should just power through it. And they shove the blade, and that's when it winds up stabbing them. When you get stuck and you're trying to do something and the blade stops moving, back off. What other way can you execute this? Is there a way to move the gouge so that you don't do that? Can you pull back out a little bit? Rather than keep going deeper, pull it back up and try to get out of it that way. Or just back off completely and try to redo that section with a new cut where you take off a little bit less maybe this time, rather than more. A little bit less will do you. Now we talked about safety and about washing your hands. Let's talk about using a gouge. I talked in Whittling 101 about how when you're using the knife, you keep that knife traveling forward as you carve, because traveling forward makes it a slicing cut. And just like slicing bread, it becomes easier to cut the bread. The same thing is true when you're using a gouge, and it's just harder to see. You might not notice people doing it. So in this maneuver here, where I'm pushing this forward, I'm going to be turning the gouge like this, kind of clockwise or counterclockwise in my hand. A little turn, either direction, it doesn't really matter, but keeping that turning a little bit, and it can just be slight, will keep it moving much more efficiently and much more easily. As you practice this, you get really quite good at very minimal turning and easily sliding it through the wood. It doesn't have to be big and exaggerated turning. I'm doing big exaggerated turns right now just to illustrate to you. But when I'm carving here, you might not notice or see me turning that gouge even at all, because the turning that I'm doing, the slicing portion, is so minute. That helps though, because it lessens the friction on the blade, on the cutting edge, the apex of that gouge, and it allows it to move through the wood much more smoothly, much more efficiently. This is something that when I'm watching experienced carvers, when I watch closely, I can see them all doing it. I can see like really great carvers, like Rich Weatherby. I've seen Van Kelly and Roger Stiegel do it. I'm seeing them all do it, and it's probably, and it might be, something that they've innately learned. So it took me a while to realize what was happening and to see that I was doing it in some small ways already, and that when I was doing it, I was having an easier time. And so learning what is giving you an easier time when you're carving, that's a lot of what we're doing here, right? That's a lot of how we're figuring things out and how we're learning new things. So keeping that blade moving, like I said, in a turning fashion as you carve, and it doesn't have to be much. And if you're aware of it, you're probably gonna start picking that up pretty easy as you go. Like here, you can see I'm turning a little bit counterclockwise as I go, right through there, right? A little exaggerating it a little bit right there. And I just carve so much easier. If I just push, I can carve, but it's taking more force to do the same action, right? More force to get through the same amount of wood. And more force is gonna wear you out more quickly. And it's gonna be like, oh, this hobby is tiresome. It's wearing me out. But you see other carvers, and they carve for far longer than you did, and they're not getting as worn out as you are. Well, this is one of the reasons why, because they know how to use their tool more efficiently, and they're getting more done than you may be getting done in the same amount of time. With the V tool on this, you can't really move the V tool in the same way, because if you start spinning it, you come out of your V channel. So what's happening here? How do I do the same thing? Well, you can just power through it and just press them a long way. That's really easy to do when you're not as deep. And then you can do a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper each time, okay? That is one way of doing this. Just go ahead and powering it through and pushing straight and just doing a little bit at a time. The less you do, the easier it's gonna go through the wood. The other option is this, and you'll see me do this often. I can do deeper cuts by coming in like this, and I'm carving at an angle, and thus I'm giving that same kind of maneuver to it, but in a way that you don't see, because the movement is in and out rather than left to right. So on the Santa hat, when I'm doing that, I'm carving in that manner a little bit at a time and then going back a ways. So like when I come back in here, I'm not going to start where I ended. I'm going to come back and start a little bit behind it and then bring it forward. And see here, I'm carving towards my hand, but the movement is this right here. I'm not in danger of stabbing my hand because I'm not shoving it with the forearm. I'm moving it with the wrist, and I'm using this left thumb to guide that movement as well. So I'm not in danger of shoving it into my finger here. It's kind of like the paring cut that we do with a knife, and the paring cut is the knife maneuver like this, right? Where we're cutting towards ourselves a little bit, but I'm using that clenching action of the palm to do that and keeping this thumb down there out of the way as I do that. See, I'm clenching that palm, and that's bringing the knife in. And so I keep that palm, I'll keep that thumb out of the way. You should still be wearing a thumb guard doing something like this, just like I'm wearing glove protection over here. But then when I do this maneuver, in and out, I'm not pushing forward a lot. I'm bringing it in, bringing it in, bringing it in, bringing it in, like so. And it creates that same thing I'm going for. It takes a little more time to do it this way, but I don't mind because it's a lot less work, and I'm not tiring my hands out in the way that I might be if I was just powering through it. And when you're doing something on a curved surface like this around the outer edge, that's pretty easy to do in this manner than that powering through on a long stretch. Like I might not be able to do that as easily on a curved surface. You got to keep turning it the whole time while you're doing that. So doing that in and out kind of thing makes it really easy on a curved surface to be able to get that V tool all the way around there in the way that you might want to. Now, on the original Whittling 101 video we did, we talked about using knives to do V cuts to create a spiral pattern like so, right? But you could also do this with a V tool, and it could be significantly easier because we can put our V here and we can just carve a little channel right like so into our wood. But that doesn't get us a very deep channel unless we go back through it. And folks will say, well, Johnny, that's not a very wide V. You're only going to make that shape right there as you go through here. And that's not entirely accurate, because what you can do as you deepen this, now we've got it deepened a bit, I'm going to lay this side over to the right, and I'm going to start carving out a wider channel using the right side, because because on this V tool, that right side is essentially a knife blade right here, just like the left side. So now we got this widened out. I can do the same thing the other direction, leaning it over towards the left and widening this channel out again in the other direction. And we can make a wider channel here however we want to with the same V tool. And then we can get deeper even yet as we come out of this top, or even back in there farther, and really do some really neat work that you might not have thought to do just using the V tool. I can even round this edge off here using this V tool. Start to bring that into a smoother edge just using the flat edge of that tool like it's a skew. Figuring out the myriad of ways these tools can be used will allow you more versatility in the carvings that you do. Because when you look at a carving, you think, I need to figure out a way to maybe, let's say I need to do a carving, I need to take out this block right here, right? Well, as you're working, you could use a knife and you could stop cut and just work your way back in there. Or you could just take your V tool and start carving that out. There are so many solutions for how to remove that section of wood outside of just stop cutting and carving down to it. In this instance, in this manner, this may be the ideal solution. But what if we wanted to have this corner up here still here all the way across? So we only want to remove from here down to here. Well, now all of a sudden, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do it with a knife, because every time you cut up, you're risking cutting through and chipping that out. But if you cut through here with a V tool, you can line that out much more efficiently and make it a little bit easier to do. And now when I'm carving down, I'm not worried as much about what I'm stop cutting into, because I'm not at risk as much at going through this. So let's switch to the gouge for just a moment here as well. While I'm going through this section, if I use a gouge, I'm just going straight down. So I can just go left to right through here and just take out a lot of wood going cross grain very efficiently, a little bit easier maybe than a knife. And it depends on what experience level you have within the individual tool as to what you're going to find easier. But what I'm trying to show here is the versatility available to you when you have a V tool and a gouge. Now, I can come in here and try to clean this up with a knife, doing some stop cuts, coming down, and I can square off those corners a bit, right? We all know how to do that. You should have plenty of experience with a knife. You've got that under control. You can also square off those corners with a V tool by putting your V right there in that corner and starting to carve along using the edges of that V tool as I showed you on that spiral, just to start flattening those out. And for a corner that might be curved, let's say we had a corner that's curved like so, and you want to have a good 90-degree corner in there. That's where the V tool really can start to shine, because you can just carve it out in that nice circular way that creates a really smooth line. And that's much more difficult to do with a knife and do right. It can be done, but it's more difficult. And the goal here is not, the goal here is consistently about the versatility that you have when you allow yourself to use other tools outside of just the knife. When you get a hold of the options that you have, you're going to have so many more options for doing any particular cut on more advanced carvings that you're looking to do on your own that you wouldn't have otherwise envisioned. And that's the goal here. So what are some crazy things or some fun things you can do with a V tool? So we already talked about, when you're making a channel, how you can use the sides of the V to start to widen that channel out. And I'm going to show you a little bit on this right here. As I widen this V out, I use those sides. Look at that big, slow sloping V. It's very minute, starts here and slowly comes down, and those edges fan out nice and slow. I mean, that is just not the shape you would expect to get from this tool. And all we did there was we started to lay the edges over as we went through there and use the edge of the V tool to do that. There are so many areas of carving on whatever you might be carving where a shape like that may be beneficial, and you can use this tool to create that shape. We could also come in and do a stop cut with this V, and I'm just going to come right in right here like that, and I'm creating a big V-shaped stop cut. Large V. And then we switch over to our knife, and we have got a very well-shaped V-cut just in the same shape as our V tool, which could be hard to get. So using this as a stop cutting tool is absolutely fantastic as well. But you don't have to just use it as a stop cutting tool for your knife. You could use it as a stop cutting tool for your V tool. And you can do deeper V cuts and kind of dig a diamond-shaped hole with it into whatever substrate you're carving, and then clean it up a little bit with a knife. So yeah, then you get like a diamond-shaped kind of thing going on right there. And we were able to do that with a V tool, and it looks so symmetrically diamond shaped. It would be very difficult for me to do that without drawing and measuring and using a knife and being very careful to get that shape so easily formed in such a uniquely geometric way. But that V tool allows for that quite simply and quite easily, which is absolutely fantastic. With the gouge, you can do just like you did with the V tool, right? We can obviously make a channel with the V tool, but here's the other thing. This channel can also slide up on this edge, slide up on this edge, and then you can see we got little bumps here in the middle there, right? From where those edges ended. And then we can just kind of smooth those out a bit. And now we've got a much wider divot than we would have been able to make with just this tool by itself, by just using the tool a bit differently, right? Not just going straight in, but widening that out. We can even deepen it further and make a smooth, what, a concave, convex? I always forget which one is which. We can just keep carving out a nice smooth divot right in there, and just round it out as much or as little as you want to do that, right? For some, this seems intuitive. For others, they're going to go, what? I didn't know I could do that. And that is just the kind of the thing we're doing here, right? We want to point out everything that we can do so you have a lot of options. So we can also use this as a stop cutter, right? So let's say I put a big line in right there. I can use the knife now to carve out a very nicely done half circle kind of thing going on, right? What else can I do? I can come in at an angle opposite, rock that in, do it again from this side, maybe again from this side, depending on the shape of your particular U. If it's big and steep, it might be harder to get that that shape in there, right? And now I can carve up to it, kind of, and over to it, and over to it, and over to it. That's what you also often see people do for buttons on clothing. If it didn't pop all the way, take your knife to it. But you'll see that be a button, you know, and you can round those edges off a little bit if you'd like to. You can do whatever you want to, but that creates a neat little texture that you might not have thought about doing, might not have thought you could do. So outside just stop cuts. You can also do a U down and stop cut it itself, and look at that little divot we created. What kind of things could you use that to do to put texture to? Little divots, right? You can take a little knife to clean that up, or you can just do it with just a gouge. Let's say I put it in here and I turn it in a circular kind of fashion, right? I can make a very circular divot, however you want to. You can do all kinds of things with this tool if you start exploring its use, if you start using it more often and trying things with it just to play around with it. And that's all I got for you in the video today. Thank you so much for sticking around the video. I really appreciate it. These fine folks over on Patreon have been helping out the channel by supporting, and I really sincerely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. It's fantastic. I am always working on new videos. I've got a painting 101 video that I'm working on. I've got a gloves video that I'm working on. I've been typing out my final thoughts on the gloves video, and yeah, it's going to be it's a lot to get done. And so I appreciate their support sincerely from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Outside of that, though, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, head over to Instagram, Facebook, give me a like and a follow over there. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.